So I don't know about you, but I have hundreds of saved posts on Instagram, like maybe even thousands. I'm kind of too scared to go and look. They're these, what are they? These kind of little pockets of inspiration, recipes I think I'm going to make, even though I don't really cook, essays I want to read. We obviously bought our apartment last October, so there's a lot of interiors that I've saved, quotes, poetry, stuff that's kind of felt like it's, I don't know, grabbed me in some way, touched my heart in some way. And I haven't returned to any of it. Like, think about it. Hundreds of saved posts. I cannot remember the last time I went back and looked. I've also got so many tabs open in 4 different browsers. Some of them are so old, they've kind of lost their little icon. It's like they're frozen, a frozen intention. One day at one point, I thought I was going to read that or do that thing. Then there's screenshots on my phone. My goodness me. I don't even know what I screenshotted or why. I don't remember why I screenshotted something. I literally never go and look for old screenshots. Don't get me started on the notes app on my phone. There's so many notes, and like so many of them are from a time and place or a version of me that like doesn't even exist anymore. I've got private Spotify playlists that captured the feeling that I was having at a particular time in my life that I've never been with again. And this is what I want to talk about in this episode. And this is what I want to ask all of us and what I want us to sit with. Where are our inner worlds living? Like, not the world that we're performing on the internet or even for our friends or our colleagues at work. Where are our actual interior worlds living? The things that genuinely interest us, the ideas that we keep coming back to, or at least want to come back to, but can't retain. The threads of thought that feel important, but that we just haven't followed. I don't know, it feels like all the way down. Like, where is all of this? Because what I'm starting to realize, and I can only assume you might be as well, is that most of us, we don't have anywhere for all of this to live. We're consuming content at such an extraordinary rate. We're obviously saving, we're bookmarking, we're emailing stuff to ourselves, we're screenshotting. We might be sharing with friends in WhatsApp groups, on DMs, on Instagram, but we're not like tending. There's this really quite significant difference, I think, between saving something and then actually keeping it, but then more than that, doing something with it. Being with it again, exploring it, being in relationship with it. And that's what I want to talk about today, is that difference. And I want to introduce you to something that I've been exploring and thinking a lot about, and just beginning to build for myself in a really slow, intentional way. And that is a digital garden. But before I get into it, I want to just speak a little bit more about what I think is happening right now. And I want to talk about it because I think it's bigger than just being disorganized or having all of these kind of cluttered bookmarks in all these different places. We are living in a time of extraordinary information abundance, and really at no other point in human history have we had access to this many ideas, to this much art, to this much writing, to this many perspectives. It's all literally at our fingertips at any hour of the day or night. And I think that sounds incredible in theory. And there's a lot here in kind of democratizing learning, really valuable. But I also think the volume has done something to us that we haven't quite kind of reckoned with yet. And it's what I'm personally reckoning with now. And I think what I hope to help you start to reckon with by talking about it, because what tends to happen when we're in an environment of extreme abundance is we stop discerning, we stop choosing, and we become, I think, sort of passive receivers of whatever is being kind of pushed to us or on us. And what is being pushed at us, pushed on us on Instagram, on TikTok, on YouTube, on Substack, even in our group chats, it's not actually neutral. It's been curated by the platform itself and potentially also the person that shared it with us. The platform piece, though, that bloody algorithm, it has a primary interest. Its interest is keeping us on platform for as long as possible, consuming as much as possible. It doesn't have an interest in enriching our inner life. It doesn't have an interest in helping us build this more coherent sense of self. It doesn't have an interest in leading us deeper into things that genuinely matter or that we're interested in. It just wants to keep us there, keep us scrolling. And the result, I think, is this really strange fragmentation where we might have a genuinely rich interior world. We might have interests. We might have passions. I mean, we do. I shouldn't say might. We do have passions and interests. We have things we care about deeply, but none of it feels cohesive. And I'm not saying it has to all live together in this kind of beautiful thematic way, but I just feel like we're struggling with meaning making and sense making. It's all just scattered across like 15 different platforms and apps and folders and inboxes and collections of different things. And we've just kind of forgotten about most of it. Like, even just thinking about the amount of photos we've taken that we'll never look at again and we don't really remember. We're at a point where we're taking the same photo again, not realizing that we already have it. So I've been thinking about this a lot in relation to my own intellectual life because, I do read. I do watch things. I do listen to really nourishing conversations that genuinely move me. But if you asked me to draw a map of my thinking right now, like, what have I genuinely been curious about this year? And not through the lens of offline and the brand and the content pillars, but the actual ideas that I've been sitting with personally. What thread feels important to follow? Like, I'm not completely sure that I could do that because I recognize, and part of what I'm getting at in this episode is that I haven't built a place for all of those things to live, for me to be able to be in relationship with them and see through ways and threads. Instead, what I think I've built and what most of us have built is just this kind of graveyard of intention. A kind of beautiful, a very well-meaning, but completely inaccessible archive of things that we intended to return to and then literally never did. And I think this is actually quite a significant loss for us. I think ideas need to be held, they need to be returned to, they need to be connected to other ideas. This is a really rich experience when we do this, and we're missing out on having this experience. The connection of ideas is actually how we develop a real point of view. It's how we build a perspective on something rather than just having a reaction to it. It's how we arrive at this kind of very slow, considered thinking that actually changes how we move through the world. We've been fed this story, and I think it's obviously quite a capitalistic story, that information is most valuable when it's fresh, when it's trending, when it's current, when it's very right now. But I don't think that's true. I think the most valuable ideas are often the ones we've had time to sit with. And in fact, the most valuable ideas, a lot of them already exist and we keep returning to and referencing as a culture and collective. But it's these ideas that we've returned to, and we've returned to them over and over and over again. And every time we return to them, we find something new based on where we are in our life, in our state of consciousness. It's like the ideas that have actually been given time and space to breathe. So I want to talk to you about this digital garden concept, and I want to be super clear that this is not a productivity system. This is not a bloody 5-step framework. You know how I feel about frameworks. It's enough of the frameworks. This isn't a task manager. It's not a content calendar. It's not a to-do list. It's not even really a note-taking system in the traditional sense, but notes will be taken. A digital garden, it's more of a personal, very non-linear, evolving collection of things that matter to you, ideas that you're exploring, quotes that stopped you in your tracks, articles and essays that you just want to linger a little longer with, that you want to return to. It's also a place for half-formed ideas, thoughts that seem to have not come to a close, just also a home for our thinking. It's somewhere for things that we've learned, things that we're still trying to learn or want to learn. I see it as a place for images that capture a feeling that we've been chasing, books that have changed something in us, of course, questions that we're sitting with, references that keep appearing across everything that we consume. And when you're aware of this, you won't unsee it. But it's called a garden because that's kind of what the metaphor is asking of us. A garden isn't a finished thing. It grows. It changes with the seasons. Our digital garden will change, as we evolve, as we move into new seasons of our lives. A garden also requires tending, and not like obsessive, anxious, type A tending. I'm looking at myself. Not the kind of tending that becomes like another thing on your to-do list. This is not the point of a digital garden. But just like a very gentle an attention that keeps something alive, that lets it develop and grow naturally over time. You know, you might take things out of the garden. Things might start to feel like weeds. You might move things around in the garden. You might discover really unexpected connections in the garden, like I was talking about, connecting those ideas. Things that seemed unrelated might turn out to be deeply connected. This would be a very rewarding experience. But the garden really does grow in our image, and over time, I really think it can become something very extraordinary, almost like a portrait of our mind, a demonstration of our state. So the concept comes from this distinction that I find really beautiful, that is the idea of the garden versus the idea of the stream. So I see social media as a stream. It's fast, it's kind of ferocious, it's loud, and typically it's gone in seconds. You know, you scroll past something that moved you, and within a few more scrolls, it's like buried. I mean, I know you can scroll back, but you know what I mean? It feels like it's there and then it's gone and kind of never to be found again in a way. The stream is designed to move, and in that sense, it's like never really ours. It belongs to the platform that is powering the stream. And what's powering the stream obviously is the algorithm. But a garden is the opposite of all of that. It is slow. It is cumulative in nature. It is self-authored. Nothing disappears because you were the one who chose to put it there and to keep it there. Everything you plant in your digital garden was chosen by you, not by the algorithm. And over time, months, I'm thinking years, it becomes something that I think we could actually take our own breath away a little bit. And the reason for that is this tending to ideas, it will compound. The thing that we saved 2 years ago turns out to be connected to something that we encountered today or last week. And it's there for us in a way that it just couldn't have been and that we couldn't have anticipated. And in that connection, something new emerges. Something that feels, I think, entirely of our own cognition. I also wanted to say that the digital garden is not content. I'm like, so want to be clear about what this is not. It's private. And look, it could be public if you want it to be, of course, but the idea is that it isn't for public consumption. You're not building this or growing this digital garden to present it to the world or to grow an audience or even to demonstrate your intelligence or your taste on the internet. I think it's going to be very tempting to be like, look at what I've grown. And again, we can, but it wouldn't be the point. Could this just be a place for your thinking to live, to breathe, for your thinking to develop without shame, without the performance? And honestly, I think there's something really profound about that in a world where we've been conditioned to create only what we're kind of prepared to publish, to create what we want our name associated with or against, to only hold on to what we're willing to share as well. There's no composting happening. It's just in the bin or it's out in public. And this is what we get to do with this digital garden, is to compost old work, old ideas. I should say this isn't a new idea. It's not something I've made up. If you think about it, people have been keeping versions of this sort of thing forever. I think about writers and key thinkers who have always had some form of, what might have been a book or a notebook where they collected quotes and passages and ideas and observations from what they were reading. Artists obviously have sketchbooks. Think about, architects probably have reference folders, creative directors. Researchers have annotated libraries, curators and collectors have archives. So the digital garden is just, I feel like a kind of contemporary iteration of something that humans have been doing for a really, really long time. It's just that I think we've lost the art of tending to kind of a body of work and thoughts and interests and passions. What's probably new is just the urgency of it. Again, we've never had this level of noise to contend with before. We've never had this amount of algorithmic interference between us and our own thinking. And so deliberately reclaiming a space that is genuinely, wholly, unapologetically ours, outside of any bloody platform, outside of any algorithm. To me, it just feels more important now than it ever has before. So this question of why now, it does matter. Why is this the thing I want to sit here and talk about today? And really, it's that I think we've arrived at a moment where the question of who is curating our interior life has become genuinely urgent. And you know me, like I'm not trying to be alarmist in any way. I'm just probably coming to this from a more practical place. It's definitely coming from a very grounded, also very personal place. Like I'm asking myself this question: who is deciding what I think and what I think about? Who is deciding what I encounter? Who is deciding what I'm drawn to, what I return to, what I build a relationship with over time? Like, is it me, or is it a system that has been designed by very smart engineers at these big tech companies to keep me and us stimulated and as on platform as possible? And this is obviously the thing that sits at the heart of what Get Offline is really all about for me. It's not that the internet is bad. It's not that AI is bad or technology is the enemy. It's not that we need to reject what is modern and contemporary or innovative and go and like live off grid somewhere. Although most days I think that would be pretty amazing. It's just that we've drifted, I think, gradually, almost unnoticeably, into a kind of passive relationship with our own attention and interests. I don't even know if I could say passions. Like, do we really have them anymore? We've handed over the curation of our intellectual lives to systems that have absolutely no interest in our depth or our growth, and definitely not in our sovereignty. And the result, I think, is a kind of impoverishment, because I don't feel deprived in the obvious sense. Like I feel a lot of the time busy, I feel stimulated, I feel directional. I feel like I'm participating in my life. But no, there is this kind of insidious thing happening underneath, which is I'm full of input, you're full of input, but we're starved of meaning. We've had like a million reactions, but not any actual thoughts. We've saved 10,000 bloody things and integrated, I don't know, none of it, some of it, a tiny bit of it. And we can contrast this with something, because I think so many of the minds we admire, you know, the thinkers, the writers, the curators, even the founders, the people whose work feels like it has real depth and real texture and nuance, and just these kind of through lines, the ones that seem to have a very kind of, it's not cohesive, but a coherent worldview, they're the ones that I think have built ideas over time, over months and over years. They're the people whose thinking has compounded into something that it just feels genuinely theirs and genuinely interesting. And that is not some happy accident. It's a very deliberate thing. It's not that they're born with this coherent worldview. It's that they cultivated that worldview over time through depth of thinking and allowing and being in relationship with their ideas, tending to their own minds. This is my North Star in my own work. And I would argue that they probably have a place where all of that lives, so they can see where it intersects and connects together. Who knows? But I'm sure they have something. And what I'm proposing is that we all have the same thing, and we can call it a garden. It's what I want for you. It's what I want for me. I want us to have this really intellectual richness. And again, not because it's productive in some way, not because it's going to help us generate the next billion-dollar idea or create this viral piece of content. It's not about any of that. I think a lot of that could come out of it. We should hold space for that, but it's not the primary purpose or intent of cultivating a digital garden. The primary intent is to build this rich inner life. Like we deserve to develop a relationship with our own thinking. We deserve to know what genuinely interests us, not what a bloody algorithm has decided we should be interested in, but what we, when left to our own devices, in our own time and on our own terms, are genuinely, inexplicably, specifically drawn to. This is a form of sovereignty, and I use that word very deliberately. I know I use it a lot, but I want it to be a word that we all begin to develop a relationship with. This is an act of sovereignty, patiently building something that's ours, that no platform owns, that no algorithm can bury or buy, that no trend cycle can make irrelevant. This is a sovereign act. You know, when Instagram changes its algorithm, and it will, like it always does, we should expect this, our garden won't move when a platform disappears. And we have to remember this, they do. Like, it feels like it's been a while since this has happened, but they can and do disappear, but our garden will stay. And when we step back from social media for a week or a month, and gosh, I hope we start to do this, our garden is there when we return. There's also something about the slowness. You know, we've been trained to value speed, to equate rapid consumption with staying informed and staying relevant and being, I don't know, smart and like being seen to be across it all. But I think the ideas that actually change us, the ones that land and shift something in us and stay, those tend to be the ones that we've spent time with, that we're in relationship with. They're the ideas that we chose to return to, and the ones that we've let sit as kind of like brewing within. So your garden can be this place for very slow thinking, for, again, these ideas that aren't finished yet and that may take a while to feel complete. It can be for the questions that you're not ready to answer or have answered and would like to document that response. It could be for the things that don't feel important, but that you don't fully understand yet. You know, that stuff where you're like, I want to put this somewhere, but it doesn't feel relevant right now or important right now, but it feels like it will. And we just don't have to rush this cultivating of a more intellectual life. So I also wanted to bring up my beautiful seasonal curriculum. I've done an episode on this and a Substack essay on it as well. And I want to talk to you about the difference between these two things and that ultimately they live together. I will link the seasonal curriculum episode in the show notes if you haven't listened to it already. There's also a beautiful Notion template that you can grab and make your own if you want to start participating in your own personal curriculum each season. But yeah, I want to talk about how these two concepts and ideas are different but also related. They're doing really different things. So I want you to think about the seasonal curriculum is like a forward-looking intention container. I love using the word container. Every season, you know, roughly every 3 to 4 months, we sit down and we ask ourselves, what do I want to read this season? What films do I want to see? What exhibitions do I want to attend? What experiences do I want to have? What theme is alive for me in this season? What questions am I asking myself right now in this moment? And we kind of curate this. It's like a personal program for the season ahead. But just like the seasons reset, our personal curriculum, our personal program resets. So the seasonal curriculum, it's about choosing what you're going to be cultivating next. The digital garden, on the other hand, is really what grows from all of that stimulus and information and all of those experiences. It's where the things that we encounter across all seasons, all months, all years get to live and develop and accumulate. So remember, it's got this compounding nature about it. it doesn't reset. It's growing in breadth and depth. It's not resetting. It's not really about intention. It's about what we've actually found. It's about what's actually moved us and what's actually stayed with us. So I want you to think about the digital garden as this place where things actually take root and then keep growing. I think they can absolutely live in the same space. I'm currently using Notion, but they're just doing very different things. So one is about what you intend to experience and explore, and the other is about what you actually collect along the way. And both of them, I think, are essential parts in being just an intentional, self-authored person in the world. I just want you to remember that this isn't an archive for everything. It is a garden, and part of gardening is choosing what to plant and what not to plant. And not every interesting thing you encounter belongs in your garden. So there is an element of curation about it. Some things you might consume, but they can just pass through. It doesn't all have to live here. I think the act of deciding what stays and what doesn't, this in itself is a practice in discernment and self-determination. And discernment and self-determination, I would argue, are the two things that we need to cultivate the most right now in this age of bloody algorithms and AI that we are currently inhabiting and that don't look to be going anywhere anytime soon. So I am, of course, going to be writing a companion essay to this on Substack. It's also called Offline with Alison Rice. The link is always in the show notes if you ever want to subscribe, and I hope you do, because that really is where I go deeper. That is really where I stretch out what I'm bringing here on the podcast. And in the essay that I'm going to write about the digital garden, I'm going to walk you through more of that practical how. So this has felt very much like the what is a digital garden and why do we need a digital garden, or why I think we need one right now. But the essay is going to talk a little bit more about how I've built mine, or how I'm building mine, because it really is in process at the moment, where it lives, what it looks like. I'm obviously going to offer you a template that you can grab and make your own the same way I did for the seasonal curriculum. I am thinking about combining these into more of a workspace on Notion than individual templates. So I'll be sure to link that in the essay if that comes through. But yeah, I did want to start here really with the what is it and why do we need it? Because I think the why is actually what motivates the how. I think the why is really the difference between setting something up once and actually returning to it. So how do we not just create something else that we felt was a good idea at the time, but then haven't actually used? I think we have to understand the what and the why to actually create the intentional action, to be in it, to tend to it, to use it, to, let the garden grow and enrich our lives. And I think that's kind of the simplest idea that I've been sitting with, is this idea of tending and allowing, and how cultivating this digital garden is really a through way to us tending to our minds. Because in this world that just feels so relentlessly designed, I don't know, it just feels so taken care of for us, that's only going to continue. Us tending to us and deciding what we want to think about or do think about something. Yeah, it is this act of rebellion. And I think we all need to be a little bit more rebellious right now. And I'm not talking like loud rebellion or performative rebellion. It doesn't feel to me to be this rebellion that like announces itself on the internet, or that we necessarily create content out of, or anything like that. It's just a quiet, private, inner rebellion that we are carving out a space and time for ourselves, for what's ours and what nobody else needs to like see or validate or applaud us for. This digital garden for me is already saying like, I'm not just this passive receiver of content. I am an active curator of my own existence and my own mind. And I have a relationship with my own thinking that is deeper than a bloody scroll and longer, much longer than a trend cycle. I'm already feeling like I'm building something that isn't for an audience. And this is super healthy for me personally. It's not for a platform or for an algorithm. It's just for me. And like, do we have that? And I think that's a question to ask yourself is, do you have a place that is genuinely privately yours, that feeds something in you that social media was just never designed to feed, like that deep satisfaction of tending? I keep using that word, of tending, of allowing, of returning, of composting. That's also coming up for me, of like going back into old ideas and thoughts and questions and kind of digging them up and reusing them for new thoughts or new ideas or new work. I think it's going to be so illuminating that what we were tending to 6 months ago, like seeing what that's now grown into. And I think it's going to be stuff that we just couldn't have predicted, that we just couldn't have known was going to like connect to other things. Again, this feels rewarding. This feels really fulfilling, this slow accumulation of, an inner world. And that's what I want. That's what I want for us. It's what I want for you. So come and find me on Substack for that how. Again, it's always linked in the show notes. And thank you for being here and listening to me chitty chat about the digital garden.